book friends, this is Kat. Welcome back to my channel. It has been a while, but I am back and I have my book recommendations for my new challenge that I'm doing for 2025. I know that the announcement video was not clear towards the end, so I'm going to address some of those questions that you may have in this video. Truth be told, I actually had to re-upload that video and kind of cut it out a bit because it was really long and there was an initial second part to the challenge, but for some reason the video would not upload. It kept freezing, so I was able to just record another one, but instead of doing the two-part, I figured let's just start slow for this first year and just do that first part. But I did have some questions about the biblical fiction retelling for the second half of the year. So I'm going to pull up the graphic and so that you can follow along too. In August, when you pick one of Paul's letters to read, there is a separate prompt for August because it technically won't work out with the biblical fiction part. And so for August, it's on my graphics sheet, but Paul needs to be in the retelling of whatever biblical fiction book that you will be reading. So in September, you pick any of these from Paul's letters to do the biblical reading portion. And if you're doing the fiction book portion, you would need to find a book that has a city's name in the title or a city on the cover of that biblical fiction book. In October, we're into the general letters, and the biblical fiction prompt is to pick a book with a modern day retelling of a biblical book. So technically that's not really like biblical fiction, but I wanted to include like a retelling of a book in the Bible. So I just kind of added that into the October prompt. And then November, you finish out the general letters. And so the prompt for November is to randomize a letter. So use a random letter generator. And that letter just needs to be in the title somewhere. So I tried to make it easy for that. Didn't have to start with it. It just has to be somewhere in the title. So if you have any more questions, just let me know. But I will also link the graphics again in this description box. So let's talk about my recommendations for the first month, which is January. And so in January, we have the law. So the biblical books are Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Deuteronomy, and Numbers. So I have a list of books and I looked at my Goodreads and what I had that I've read that is a biblical retelling from those biblical books. And I only had one, which surprises me, Counted with the Stars. And this book is based in the book Exodus in the Bible. Counted with the Stars is a woman who is an Egyptian, and she lives through the time of the plagues that fell upon Egypt. And you get to know a lot about like Egyptian culture, what they believed in, and it was very fascinating to see like all the different like gods that they followed. Very interesting read. I enjoyed it, and it kind of talks more about like the trek through the wilderness and an interesting interpretation. So this is book one of her series from the Out of Egypt series. So I would recommend this book. And I will say these other books that I am going to mention in this video are books that I have on my radar. So I haven't read them yet. If you have, let me know if these are books that I would enjoy. But I'm just going to go ahead and just say some of these books so that way when you start to look through your reading plans, if one of these sounds interesting to you, then you can check it out and see if that is something you want to pursue to read. So the next book I'm going to talk about is called Shadow of the Storm, and this is also set in the book Exodus. And this is the second book in the Out of Egypt series from Connellan Cassette. This follows one of the characters that you meet in the first book, and it's a Hebrew woman, and she is trained to become a midwife, but this is the time where the Israelites are in the wilderness, and so you will see some of the complaining, the grumbling, and I think the golden calf is in this story where the Israelites are worshiping the calf, and Moses comes down and gets upset, and so does God. And so I'm interested in the second book. I did enjoy this character in the first book. I'm eager to see like her perspective in the story. So there is that one. Another book that I've heard a lot about is Daughter of Eden by Jill Eileen Smith. This one is about Eve in the garden. From what I know, though, it's not just her in the garden. I think it follows through her entire life. So you might see the story of Cain and Abel, and her third son Seth, and yeah, I think this has been taught in the YouTube community. So that one is on my radar, and it is set in the book of Genesis. The next book that is on my radar is The Pharaoh's Daughter, and this is set in the book of Exodus. And Pharaoh's Daughter is by Misu Andrews, and I previously read a book from her that I really did enjoy. This one is the story about Pharaoh's daughter, who was the one who found Moses in the Nile and basically helped raised him during that time where the Israelites were in Egypt. So I know Misu Andrews does a lot of her research and everything, so I'd be interested to see how she interprets this story. And the last book I have on my radar is called The Reluctant Rival, and this is Leia's story, and also written by Misu Andrews. And so it talks about the rival between sisters and how they are trying to reach Jacob's affection, and it is set in Genesis, somewhere in Genesis. Oh, I'm sorry, one more by Misu Andrews, Potiphar's Wife. This is also set in Genesis, and Potiphar's Wife is the story about Joseph, and basically you get the backstory with Potiphar's wife, or an interpretation of her, and why she goes and tries to win Joseph's affection, and what kind of happens with her afterwards, is my understanding from that. That's what my recommendations video. Although technically I could recommend just this one book and the other ones are just on my radar. But I hope that this sparks your interest, or at least gets the ball rolling on stuff that you might be interested in. These are the books that I'm going to be looking at when I play my January TBR game, and when I select my book that I'm going to read for January. So I think I am leaning towards the second book in this, just because it is part of a series, and that's the one that I think I'm most interested in. But if I can get others on my January TBR game, then I might pick another book from here. But I hope that this helped. And if you have other recommendations, I would love to know, or any other authors that you can recommend that I can look out for, let me know. All right. I hope you have a great rest of the day, and I will see you in another video. Bye, guys.